All right, so number 17. All fire-breathing dragons are lizards that languish in soggy climates. Therefore, no fire-breathing dragons are lizards that flourish in soggy climates. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is identify the conclusion. I've got a nice conclusion indicator here that tells me that my second sentence is my conclusion. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify my categories of things, my subject and predicate terms. So I see I've got fire-breathing dragons, so let's just make that F. Right, so this is fire-breathing dragons. And then we'll make, I've got this predicate term of the premise and the conclusion are different. I've got one is lizards that languish in soggy climates, and the other is lizards that flourish in soggy climates, okay? So I've got three terms in this argument, three categories of things, and I'm only allowed to have two. Fortunately, I recognize that languish and flourish are opposites of one another. It's sort of like term complements. So I just got to pick one of those, and then whenever I want to refer to the other one, I'm just going to put a non in front of it. I'm going to go with lizards that flourish in soggy climates. Okay? And so now I have these terms, and so I'm going to go ahead and write my premises. All fire-breathing dragons are non-L. They do not flourish. They are non-flourishing. They're languishing dragons. Therefore, no fire-breathing dragons are lizards that flourish in soggy climates. All right, so now what my method here is I'm going to look at these two statements and see which of the rules, conversion, obversion, or contraposition, could I apply to this premise to generate this conclusion. And to make that as easy as possible, I'm just going to take note of the differences. So one thing I notice is that these two qualifiers are indicating a different quality. One is affirmative and the other is negative. So one difference between these two statements is that they have different qualities. The other thing I notice that's different here is I've got one non. Okay, just one. So now what I want to do is think to myself, well, can I use conversion, obversion, contraposition, or some combination of those to start eliminating these two differences between these sentences? So I could apply, if I apply conversion to this premise, I'm going to end up switching the subject and predicate terms, but they're not switched. You can see that F is the subject term of both statements. So I know it's not conversion. If I do obversion, I would do two things to this premise. I would change its quality. That's the first step. Get rid of that all and replace it with no. So that seems to be on the right track. And then I'm going to replace the predicate term with its term complement. And the term complement of non-L is L. So I recognize that if you apply the operation of obversion to this premise, you will get the conclusion. So now the question is this. I'm working from the assumption that the premise is true, and the claim is that the premise being true will make this conclusion also true. And so I have to ask myself, is this premise the kind of proposition that you can use the rule or the operation of obversion on and get another statement with a known truth value? And the answer is yes, I can obvert anything. So as long as I've applied obversion correctly, which I have, or this person has, if the premise is true, that means the conclusion has to be true, which means the argument's valid.